right, perfect. Okay, so the only thing between us and a little social are these three gentlemen. So I'm going to keep these questions short, and if they get long-winded, it's their fault, not mine. Okay, so we got feedback last year. You guys wanted a panel, so here's what we did. We grabbed 3 of the true IT leaders in the region. I'm not going to go through all their bios. They're in the booklet, but we've got 3 VP of ITs. These guys are responsible for innovation, driving change, certainly implementation of all the technology initiatives. And we picked 3 different industries. So we've got Don with us today, who is with Ottertail, Senior Vice President of IT for both the power and the corporate. And then we've got a banker. I shouldn't call that to Ryan.
I'm not a banker.
Ryan is actually a Senior VP of IT, though, but for a very large bank. And we've got Kurt, Senior VP of IT for, would you call yourself services, insurance services, administration, services company, health? So everything else that those guys aren't, he is. All right. So I did prep them a little bit about the questions, but I normally don't read my notes anyway, so we really don't know what we're going to get here. But first topic. Every session here, you could have went and talked about security with many vendors. There's security specialists in the room. So security is top center in everybody's minds. So let's hear from these guys a little bit about the security side. So trends, initiatives. I want a little bit of feedback. Don, let's start with you. What is the true security question on top of your mind based on today or any other day?
I think the biggest thing for me is we keep hearing about technical controls. Let's get more technical controls. Let's buy this appliance, or let's get this software because it's going to help us with our security. And all comes back, that I've discovered in my experience, is it all comes back to the social piece. So social engineering for us is still a core focus, will always be a core focus until we get that. When you see all of the breaches from the Verizon DBIRs and stuff saying that 80% and growing of all breaches start with social engineering. So for us, it's more about the awareness. So we are focused less on technical controls, more on the awareness piece. So
thank you.
Education, making sure that people are aware, et cetera.
Excellent. And by the way, I gave them all permission to correct each other, so if they disagree, this could get really fun. But all right, Ryan, let's hear. If you would disagree,
well, I'm not going to disagree. I will agree on that one, because like you're talking about, you can have all the technical controls, buy all the appliances, do all that. If you don't educate your employees, it's not going to do anything. So I know within the bank itself, we actually do phishing campaigns monthly with our employees. They do quarterly training on security. I think another big factor too is to make sure vulnerability patching. Those are important, because if your systems are not patched, once again, the technology is not going to do anything. So yeah, I'd say that would be the most important.
Go ahead, Kurt.
I was going to say ditto, and we haven't even talked to each other about this, and so it's kind of funny we all had that. So I'll take a little bit different spin, because I agree that is our biggest issue that we have, is making sure we train. We do the phishing tests, things like that within ours. We're also looking at a lot of different areas too. I mean, we get into more of the browser isolation is another thing that we're looking at or using right now. We're trying to put some of those controls as well into play. Just looking at, we know email is probably our worst one that we're going to get. Somebody's going to come through to us. So we want to make sure we put that off on somebody else's servers and make sure we don't have that happen within our 4 walls. So we're really looking at that. Also looking at a lot of, we do yearly pen tests, audits within our company. Big thing for us is let somebody help us find our issues as well. Nothing better than to have somebody come in and help us find those holes before somebody gets in from the outside. So we're spending a lot of time in that area, and there's a lot of good vendors out there that can help you punch a lot of holes in your network, in your whole business, I guess, even from a physical security control as well. We always talk about cyber controls, but we also look at ours from a physical perspective. If they get into our building, what does that mean to us as well? So we spend time on that. When we have people come through and do risk assessments for us and pen tests, we have them do physical ones as well, because that's the biggest thing. And we tell our employees, we teach them or train them on that as well, as you're our biggest assets. We've all heard that before, and we want to make sure they understand that, and that's why we push that through.
Perfect. And obviously, the 3 have different regulatory bodies that are involved with them, right? With HIPAA and the insurance side of it, and on the power grid. I mean, so you have additional challenges that are coming on you from the security side. So I'm going to give a real quick yes or no question. Does this year, because security's been big for every year, does the budget increase, stay the same, or go down for security? Don?
It increases by a percentage every year.
Yeah, it's an increase. Goals though for 2019 is really to look and optimize at our current solutions. 2018, we did bring a lot of different solutions into the bank, so now it's up to us to make sure they're optimized.
Us in the same way. Our security budget specifically is going up, not only from hardware, testing, things like that, but just even the training and the type of things we do with our employees.
Perfect. And then not all you were able to hear Evan Franson earlier talk about some of the vendors and know how that has certainly become a risk in and of itself, the vendors you work with and how you manage that. Is that something that is, I'm nervous about the smile because you're not going to come to me for more security, right? No, we're secure. Everything we do is perfect. But seriously, is that something that's on the radar here, guys? Don?
Supply chain management, especially from third-party vendor risk assessments, is huge right now. In fact, NERC is bringing another standard that includes supplier chain management. So for us, that will be coming up. It doesn't mean that we don't focus on the enterprise side. We also have several initiatives where we're looking at our supply chain and third-party risk assessment. It's interesting you say that, because if you take a vendor that you're excited about or happy with, and then somebody else tells you, man, those guys, they had a SOX violation, 2 years ago, and then you look back at yourself and say, how did that apply to our supply chain 2 years ago? And so, speaking to the board and specifically from the grid side, and knowing the targets and those things have been breached using a third-party supplier, it's paramount for us, and it will become a compliance thing here in the near future.
Perfect. Ryan, you want to add to that?
Yeah, as a bank, we do have a lot of third-party vendors that we use, and we go through an annual risk assessment with every one of them. So, and kind of like when FR Secure was in here and kind of giving on with the risk level of each of those vendors, we go through that. We have the different levels for each one. So yeah, it's huge within the financial.
Yes, us too. HIPAA data, PHI, PI, that's big for us. So we do the same thing. We have our vendor risk assessment process in place. We actually have worked with Evan before on that. But we have to go through the same thing. We do yearly, anybody that's a critical for us, we do yearly reviews. In fact, we will go on and do on-site reviews for those, as well as every other year, ones that aren't as critical. But anybody that can touch our data or see some of our data, they are critical, and we will go on-site and review those.
Perfect. And I think just a nod ahead here, these same things apply for small business too, right? Obviously not at the same scale or the magnitude, but if you're a small business, these risks are still out there, correct?
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
I mean, it doesn't matter if you're big, little. I mean, if you, as a risk assessment, if you're having a third-party vendor touching your data or you are letting them have your data, you need to go through that assessment, because once again, the reputation is on you, not that vendor. So your customers don't care about the third-party vendor; they care about that business. So,
excellent. All right, next topic. And this time, Kurt, we're going to let you go first, so they don't just think that you're just in agreement with everybody. Okay, so I actually had the chance to talk about this topic with these guys, so I'm anxious to see if they repeat the same answers to you or if they were just blowing smoke at me. But okay, artificial intelligence, big data, BI, it can all be lumped into one, and we could talk about it for months. Some of you may or may not use it. So it's a great topic. It's certainly, from my standpoint as a vendor, we're getting tons of questions on it. And if you ask my team that's working on it, it is different for every single person. So just give us a little bit of what does it mean for you guys? I know some people you've exploring, whatever, but just what does it mean for your organization? So Kurt, you go first.
Yeah, I think we talked a little bit about this, but there's, when you look at it from a business perspective and an IT perspective, there's two different ways we could look at the big data. From a business perspective, we haven't done a lot yet with that. We're looking at it right now. Some of the things that we are definitely looking is how do we organize all of this big data that we have right now? There's all kinds of disparate systems. We use SaaS platforms. How do we bring it all together? And the biggest thing I think that I've learned over the time and that we've talked with other vendors is first figure out your goal that you want. That will help you figure out what tools you need, how to organize it. There's a lot of people, depending on what they want, how proactive or how reactive they want to be out of that big data and what they get out of it is going to drive a lot. So when we look at it from a business perspective, that's what we're looking at as we're trying to figure out which tools we want to use. The other thing is who's going to be pulling that data, who's going to be using those that reporting engine. That may be the kind of how complex you can make that versus, you know, Power BI, things like that. How easy does it need to be, and who are going to be the users for that? So that's what we're looking at right now. And then there's the opposite side, or the other side of it from an IT perspective. We look at big data for all the logs that we have from an IT perspective. That's another thing, you know, getting to those SIM tools, things like that. So that's the two challenges we have right now.
Perfect. Ryan, you're up.
We're kind of in the same area where they're at. We are exploring, you know, the big data. When I was kind of talking about with the different solutions that we have is bringing those all into one platform. And the biggest thing then is as a bank, is being proactive on that data as a business standpoint. Going with the artificial intelligence piece, you know, we're looking at as well within the bank. Internally, ourselves, you know, looking at the chatbot. We're a Office 365 shop, so we're trying to help out our internal employees by having some chatbots in there. So instead of maybe calling in to someone for a question, they can be using the chatbot on that. So we're looking on that for kind of the artificial intelligence standpoint.
All right, Don, you got to hear their answers. You can copy it.
Yeah, of course, we all have data. It seems to be exponentially increasing. I'm sure these gentlemen would agree with that. I think I'm going to go back to what Kurt said. One of the problems that I see with big data or BI or Power BI or any one of these new and latest, greatest data mining techniques or data warehousing is you have to start with what are you trying to accomplish first? And once you have what you're trying to accomplish, then you set about iterative ways to get there. What I've seen companies struggle with this data warehousing or data mining is, I've got all this data, I'm going to throw it into this program, and it's going to produce me some great results that I'm going to use to sell more widgets or whatever it happens to be. Then you get the report and like, what is this? I don't know what I'm reading here. What am I supposed to get out of this? So a challenge for us is really trying to get to, what's the goal? What are you trying to get out? How are you going to get there? And what are the mechanisms that are cost effective? Because if you throw a system onto a problem, as everybody knows here, it doesn't always solve your problem. So.
Yeah, I think those are great answers. It's, from my perspective, you know, I get to work with hundreds of customers. I've yet to see the same big data solution that's just repeated, right? If it was that easy, someone would make it. But you're absolutely right on it's very unique and specific, and I love the fact that you guys all say, you know, basically you start with an analyst, right? So if somebody comes to you and says, I need this, you send one of your team out that says, why do you need it? What are you trying to accomplish? What's the ROI? And okay, this is what it's going to cost to get it. Do you really want it? And we see the same things. I should have had Joe Donegan or somebody from the team up here, because most of the projects we're working on, it's about getting data faster to the person to make a decision, compiling it from multiple systems. But they're not really going into the artificial intelligence side of it yet, right? So it's probably a similar answer to exactly what you guys hit on. Okay, so just once again, a quick nod of the head on that one, though. Is it just a buzzword that the market's created to try to, that's happened with technology, right? Or is this, it's probably here to stay, but not there yet?
I would agree. It could be buzzwords, but I mean, we're all collecting so much data, and it's, are we using it correctly, and why are we, you know, collecting it if we're not going to? Because we're all, yeah, it's just becoming a big problem. So we better either use it or figure out what we're going to do with it.
Perfect. Ryan, just this is directed more towards you because obviously retail space, right? Mm-hmm. Geofencing, you guys using it? It's coming, part of it?
We are currently not using it.
Oh, hey, see me afterwards. I got a deal for you. Okay, all right. Next topic. No, really, dude. You're going to go first because I didn't put you in the middle to hide you or protect you, so you could just say, yep, I agree. Yep, I agree. All right.
Well, so I'm just waiting for the sales guy to say something about, well, Network Center does provide big data warehousing for you. If you just want to come and have dinner with me, we'll talk about it.
And we've got a coupon today and today only. If you guys all buy, it's the infomercial. Get some Mitsu knives. All right. Collaboration. This is actually a fun topic because we're all doing it. Mobile workforce, everyone wants to work from home. Millennials, we're trying to take advantage of the productivity when we can get it. Traveling, it's everywhere, collaboration. So I could try to narrow this down to a specific question, but I actually want to leave it more open-ended. What does collaboration mean? How are you guys using it? And do you feel like there's even more room for improvement? So Ryan, I'm going to hand that one off to you first. What does collaboration mean for the bank?
Collaboration here for the bank is really on having our employees having a single point to be able to communicate with each other. We have several solutions that we're allowed to, have our employees be able to do that. One actually is video conferencing. So video conferencing is big within the bank. We are pretty much, I would say, 8 to 5. There's a video conference going on somewhere between the corporate office and then all of the retail offices. The other thing is Teams. So we're, as I said, Office 365 shop. So part of the collaboration that we are looking at and using is Microsoft Teams. We started to use it internally in some of the departments, and a goal of ours for 2019 is actually now to bring that out to all of the corporate and retail. And then on the mobile piece is, we are you think as a bank we'd be stationary, but we're mobile. We want to make sure that we can be able to go out and reach to our customers and things like that. So, we have a lot of mortgage loan officers, things like that, insurance agents that have laptops to be able to go out to the customers.
Perfect. Kurt, I'll let you go next on this one.
Yeah, well, we're kind of in the same boat, I would say, in a lot of those cases where you have the mobile phones. We have a lot of work from home employees, so we are doing a lot of trying to do more and more video conferencing as well. Another thing that we have just with all of our clients, we are starting to do a lot more WebEx seminars, which have been actually very good for us. A good way to get out there. We've had a lot of good attendance, so I'd say they're working very well for us right now. And then we're normally just the IM as well. We're using all of those types of technology. The things that we obviously, from going back to the security thing, is just how do we keep that all secure as well. So when I talk about a WebEx, you see a lot of people doing demos. We have a very good process around that as well, as we make sure people, because we record them all and then we share them, we make sure that people have a checklist of what they're doing. We don't want pop-ups coming up because somebody could get an email, somebody could get PHI, PII from a client or anything that's popping up. So we have a lot of things we make sure that they follow through on, and we keep it very limited to the number of people that can do it. They almost have to request it to be allowed to do it because we know that would be a way that something could get out on us. So we really try to keep a wrap on all of that, as well as, just want to make sure even when we're, we don't use a lot of collaborative spaces out there either where we could upload docs and things like that, because we have to be very careful again, just so somebody doesn't upload PHI and PII. So we allow it, but at a very limited, again, almost have to get the permission to do it because we just don't want to have it out there for everybody, but it's allowed when we need it.
Don, do you want to answer the question? Maybe twofold, because you have several organizations that probably have different rules on the collaboration.
Rules for collaboration is one thing, but I mean, to be a collaborator, that's one of those keywords that you need put on your resume, right? So if you're a collaborator, I mean, what does that necessarily mean? For our organization, we have a diverse set of platforms, two of them. One is electric generation, which is like big iron. Except for our other platform is like big iron because it's like manufacturing, it's heavy machinery manufacturing and stuff. So for us, collaboration means that people get into the same room together and they talk about an idea that might be semi-related to what they're doing that year. But from our side, from the IT side, we have tons of collaboration tools available to us. Most of them are either an ancillary service from Office 365 or some other software that we bought, whatever it happens to be, whether it's Project or whether it's Teams or Skype for Business or whatever collaboration tools. And what I've seen is if you don't intentionally help somebody use the tools to collaborate, then what you get is about a 1% penetration of the feature set of software that you continue to pay for.
I'm going to let that one sink in for a second. No, I think that's spot on. We represent multiple ones, and so it's confusing for me because all platforms, they're all great. Pick one, right? And then you're right, teach people how to use it. because I worked with an organization, very large healthcare provider, that had set it up in several departments where it automatically video. You made any kind of a voice call or automatic video, and it was great. Well, the rest of the organization didn't know that was happening, and so they weren't always prepared for that to come on. And so, yeah, you're right. Communication's a big deal on that. Okay, I have a couple of other questions that are going to be more unique to each of you, but let's, before we get out of time, I want to get just one main hot topic that you would recommend the audience look at, or a tip or a secret, or the stage is open, as long as it's nothing bad about me. You're welcome to say anything you want. So Don, you get to go first on this one.
So what kind of tidbit? I think one tidbit I would give to you guys as IT professionals, most of you are, is you already have this, you grew up with this. So, you know, as I did, we grew up with what I call Office 2.0, which is digital office. A lot of the people that we work with did not grow up like us. You talked about the millennials earlier. We talked about collaboration and collaboration spaces, et cetera. Most of the people that you're going to deal with didn't grow up with that, or some of them didn't. So pause, say, hey, this is the latest and greatest stuff, but it might not apply to you, and then go back and look at the infrastructure and decide, hey, can our people support it, meaning do they understand the technology, and is it going to increase the complexity of their job or decrease the complexity? And those are the two things that, you know, as IT guys, we need to kind of step back and say, is it relevant for me to get this whiz-bang thing that, you know, is really cool?
Ryan?
One tidbit I guess I have here is with, we're kind of talking about third-party vendors and third-party risk assessments, is to make sure that that third-party vendor works for you, and then that you're not working for that third-party vendor. Because once again, you know, I said as a bank, we have a lot of different vendors, LOS systems, things like that. And the one thing that I've learned from all that is that we have probably a higher expectation than most vendors expect. So just to make sure when you're working with your vendors that they meet those expectations.
Yeah, a couple things that I would say is, one of them is looking and making sure the vision of the company is where we are headed with IT as well. I think a lot of times we get, you know, focus on the security, make sure we have things locked down, but where we are going as a company, we have to make sure us as IT organizations are plugged into that. Because I want, you know, my whole thing is make sure that a year from now, the company isn't going in a different direction that we didn't know about, and we put a lot of things into place. So making sure we're in lockstep with the company, making sure, and we heard it today, I think, from the keynote too, is, you know, having that buy-off from the top of the organization is good. I can say that within our organization. We start with security, we start with a good IT vision right at the top, and we have buy-in from our executives. So that makes my job a lot easier as well. You know, and I think one of the other things to do is, you know, you see a lot of vendors here. There's a lot of vendors here that are really good at what they do, and hooking up with some of those vendors and just getting what I'd call a technology brief from them, making sure we keep up with all that information. We try to in our organization. We have security teams. We have, you know, a lot of stuff going on, but at the same time, they can bring a lot to it. So we're hooking up with vendors along the way, and I would encourage everybody else to do that, is find that vendor or that partner that you can hook up with and that you trust, and just get briefings from them on things that are going on, not just to try to, you know, not having them try to sell you products, have them get you the information that you need to keep your internal IT infrastructure safe.
Excellent. A couple more minutes, and I want to cover a couple topics. So one of the big trends, and Ben Carlsrud, our president, talked about this morning, as well as our services have had to change to meet the needs of customers as well. So we've seen a huge push for more skills in like project management, business analyst, you know, applying the technology to more to the business group, and probably less on the technical skills themselves, right? So we've had to change by adding people like Ben introduced this morning, ITIL, process management, project managers, business analysts. Why don't you guys give me a real quick lowdown of how you guys have adapted? And I know, Don, you've done this. You've made a lot of changes. You've had a lot of, you know, forcing people to change that have been in place for a long time. So there's obviously going to be a change of skills that are out there. But if you look at the crowd, we have IT professionals, we have IT leaders, we have IT managers, we have business leaders. So they're all looking to implement these tools and make these changes. And so they're all going to be looking for resources and skills to grow what they have or expand it. So could you maybe offer some advice on the types of skills or how you're making those changes happen?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go back right to what Kurt said earlier with knowing what the vision of your company is. So the first thing I tell my IT guys is, look, if you're not providing business value, then you're not providing them a service. And one of the things that you have to do is have that ability to know what value you get or the business will derive from some of your services. My idea of value is different from from asset management, for instance, whose value is laying wire or stringing up wire, which is not my value, but I can provide help with that. So one of the skills that I see lacking, I shouldn't say lacking, but that needs to be developed within IT is recognizing what a value add statement means, and then being able to take that and drive towards a complete solution instead of, like I mentioned earlier, hey, this new software should solve all your problems. Here it is, see you later. Yep, we'll support it. And then you go about your business, and then you find out a year later they've only really used 20% of the features. So I think understanding what your business purpose is, why they're doing it, what their motivation is, and how can you be a value-added partner and a support agent.
And Ryan, I'll open the same question up to you. Obviously, whether it's security skills, business analysts, you have people come to you every day with great tools that can fix every problem in the world. What are you doing to grow skills or certain things on your team to handle these changes?
Well, I'm just going to kind of go off of him, kind of talking about the project management and things like that. I'm managing that. I would hope, as a business, you have some sort of strategic goal, right? So then that goal needs to come down to those business departments, and then even within the IT department, and then those should be feeding up into that strategic goal of your guys' business. I think the one thing here at the bank is what we're transitioning to is making sure everything's moving into that project management stage. Everything is coming through. We've just brought in, just probably 3 years ago, a project management department. Everything's feeding into that project management department to help really on that timing. So we're not getting stretched on, okay, IT, you've got 6 things that's going on, or we're going to release 3 different pieces of software that our tellers might have to learn. So those are kind of the biggest things that we're working on as a bank.
Perfect. Same question to you, Kurt.
Yeah, I'd say internally for us, our customers, obviously, everybody internal. We always say our hardest customers are our internal customers. It's easy for people to come to us and complain, things like that. But the one thing I always want to make sure my team understands too is they are our customers. We need to stop and figure out what do they need, what do they want, and help them get there. I think I'm hearing that same thing across all 3 of us is we need to make sure we understand them, but we also want to work with them. I don't want to ever say no to somebody without making sure I understand it, because at the same time, it's very easy for us to say, oh, that's going to be a tough thing. It might be scary from a security perspective, but we have to find that to keep the business going, because the main key thing that we have to always do is we know we're there for one reason, and that's to keep this business moving forward. So I don't want to stand in their way. So that's my challenge. So my team members are out here. They know that's my challenge. Let's make sure we figure it out, and we can keep them moving forward.
All right, last question for each of them, and I'm going to answer it myself first so you don't take the good answer. But the coolest technology that's coming that you can't wait to get here, right? So you're not going to adapt it yet, but when it's here, it's going to be awesome. So I get to go first. We've got the self-driving cars, self-driving vacuum cleaners, self-driving lawnmowers. I am waiting for the self-driving dog poo picker-upper, and I'm the first one to buy it. So, all right. Kurt, you get to go next. What do you got? The greatest technology that's just not there yet, but you are waiting. It's going to be awesome.
Man, I don't know what that is. Right.
Anybody? Preferably business-related, by the way. We got to keep this a little bit professional. Is there something that you're like, it's not quite there? And it might be something we saw today.
I would say if there is going to be a business translator, That would be helpful. So, like, we have a bunch of acronyms and stuff, especially on the business side, where, you know, we look at the bottom line or bottom dollar or this and this. It'd be nice to have like an instant translator. So if you're talking about AI, that's not there yet, but probably will be here in the near future, is something where you're using that as a communication platform. I can't wait for that, so that when my boss says something to me, I understand it right away. I don't like. Could you please explain those three acronyms that aren't relevant to me, but might be relevant to somebody else?
I've learned a really good head nod and a smile. Really goes a long ways with that.
Is that what that is?
Ryan.
Mine's not going to be as cool as that, but I would think kind of looking at the technology as blockchain. You know, so you're seeing the adaptation of blockchains, but not at the big level. I do see that here in a couple of years on more and more things moving over into the blockchain technology.
Kurt? And you can't use my dog pooper picker upper because that would be awesome.
No, I would say right now, when you look at some of the technologies, we've seen some of it here today, but if I was looking at all the technologies, we all get so many different pieces of software and hardware together. When they all start talking together, that would be makes our life a lot easier. So the closer they can get to that, the easier our life is going to be.
I'm going to ask you that same security budget question when that happens too, by the way. So, yeah. All right. Okay, you guys, we're out of time for today. This concludes the session. These guys, we're not going to open up the question here, but they've agreed to stay around, have a cocktail. So if you have individual questions, they're all going to be over there in the vendor lounge. So thank you all for attending, and I hope to share a beverage with you next door. Thank you.